Michelle said, "There's another one, Todd, up in the corner." She pointed towards the day's 11th intruder, cowering under a fold in the tent ceiling. No pity, no mercy. I brought the wrath of God upon its head. Splat. That the last of them? Yeah, that's the last mosquito on the planet, hun. You're welcome. Well, just in case, throw up the insect repellent outside and let's just try and get some sleep. I'm beat. I unzipped the flap and set the lamp up outside and turned it on. It glowed a dim yellow, and it pushed back the darkness, just enough to illuminate two other would-be invaders that dipped the wings and flew away. I zipped up the tent and said, "Reminds me of Passover." Yeah, except I might actually choose death of the firstborn over this shit. Well, we haven't had a kid yet. Exactly, that means we get off scot-free. I knew I married you for a reason. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I kissed her and crawled into the bag. Tomorrow we hit the cliff. Tomorrow we hit the cliff. And with that we fell asleep. Todd, wake up. It's morning, ready to rock and roll. Can't we adult contemporary instead? Should have let me know that before we left. I would have updated my playlist. What time is it? 9 AM. We're late. We've still got the whole day ahead of us, but I don't want to get out there by 10. Yeah. I waved her off and sat up and rubbed my eyes. I'd kill for some bacon right now. How about a granola bar? Or a granola bar. Haven't had those yet. She tossed me one and ate half herself. And then we unzipped the tent and stepped outside, immediately stopping. Whoa. She leant over and picked up the repellent lamp and switched it off. How old did you say this thing was? Oh, it's brand new. I only got it last week. Did you get it at a scratch and dent auction? She showed me that there was a large chip along the middle of the glass that definitely wasn't there before, and it was covered in unmistakably brown smears of mosquito blood. I took it from her and turned it over in my hands. What the hell? I swear to God it was in perfect condition last night. Maybe it was dark and I just didn't see it. Todd. I looked up, and then down and around where she was pointing. There was at least 100 dead mosquitoes lying in the dirt. I mean hundreds. Gross, let's move before I puke. So I tossed the lamp into the tent. We quickly shouldered up all of our gear and then we hit the trail. The dirt path wound up outside of the campsite where a handful of other hikers had set up shop also. Then it curled round the crest of a wood hill and carried on through the forest and up a mountain slope. We spent the walk waving off mosquitoes. You didn't bring any bug spray? I slapped the back of my neck for like the 100th time. I noticed how painful these bites could be. I feel like I'm being eaten alive, I said. She sprayed herself down a little and then tossed a bottle to me, and I almost showered in it. I'm not sure if it did much good though. The mosquitoes are out in force today, and there wasn't really much we could do about it. It was only getting worse. God, one just flew down my shirt. Michelle was slapping her stomach and waving her t-shirt around with Foles trying to get them out. I saw one or two of them fly off. Is it even worth it, love? I think so. It's muggy down here, but it should clear up when we get to the scramble. Mosquitoes probably won't be swarming around anywhere that has a good amount of wind. I think we need a hurricane at this point though. Right. I feel like that guy from Gulliver's Travels getting attacked by little people thinking he's a giant. What's his name again? Gulliver. That's the one. But hey, look. She followed my gaze and saw a few hundred yards up that there were boulders at the top of the mountain. There was even a spot of neon green, and one thing that was orange really stood out. Clearly the jackets of other climbers. Look, we're almost there, and there's people up there. Come on, it's not that bad. The sight of company and open space afforded us a burst of renewed energy, and we walked briskly up the tree line and out onto the gravel that marked the beginning of the rock scramble. And at that view, we were no longer obstructed by the forest. We could see just how the mountain sloped out majestically and poured into the countryside. From here we could see up the roads. There were rivers and towns. There was even patches of wooden farmland stretching out vertically. And at the end, there was blue haze silhouettes of mountains and other hills further to explore. We stood there and just took it all in for a while, and for a moment, we completely forgotten about the mosquitoes, but then one darted on the back of my neck. I slapped it instinctively and come back to reality. Come on, hun, still too close to the woods. Now, I really couldn't help but notice that the mosquitoes really hadn't let up, even in the slightest. I used my arms as much as possible to wave them off as I did climb, and if I got attacked while engaging both hands for balance or support, I'd have to spit at the things just to get them off. Michelle was agitated as I was. How the hell are they up this far? God, I don't know, hun. I swatted another one off my cheek and flinched in pain. It's starting to piss me off now. Maybe it's not windy enough. Maybe. Either that or they aren't as put off by the wind as I thought. I hope these things aren't loaded with malaria, she said half joking, but then paused as she dwindled on her own thoughts. They don't carry malaria, do they, Todd? In the States? No. At least shit. I don't know. I looked down at a mosquito that I'd just squashed by my boot. It twitched once and stayed still. God, Michelle groaned. Isn't that really deadly? Yeah, partly because it's more prevalent in the third world though. You don't have to worry as much because we've got a much better medical infrastructure and whatnot. But at the same time, yeah, you sure as hell don't want to get malaria. Well, you're the one who's been there before. Think we should turn back? No, the path looks round at the summit and it's heavily wooded on the other side. We got a better chance of avoiding these things if we just keep going up. So on and on we went, up and over boulders, getting closer and closer to the peak of the mountain. Mosquitoes harassed our advance the entire way. I tried to be positive for the both of our sakes, but I had to admit this was not fun anymore, not even in the slightest. Michelle stopped abruptly after about 15 minutes. What's wrong? You okay? Those two spots haven't moved at all since we started. I looked up and she was right. The green and orange spots had stayed perfectly still the full hour since we'd noticed them. I got a chill at that point. Maybe they're napping? Maybe. I could tell by the quiver in her voice though that she didn't believe that for a second, nor did I. On we went though, climbing and scrambling and doing our very best to stay focused. We smacked and swatted away at mosquitoes as we needed, but their insistence was really starting to play on me. I was getting worried. What the hell are these things? Not a full second after that thought manifested, we heard a rough commotion a few feet up. We stopped simultaneously and shot each other a pair of glances, and then we nearly dove out of the way. There was a man with his daughter flying down the mountains and bowling over in the process. What the hell? Hooray, the man shouted as he flew past us. We watched as the two of them just disappeared off to the side of some boulders, and then again, hooray. What the hell is he talking about? I don't know, just keep moving, okay? I'm getting really sick of this hike. We crested the next few boulders and passed under a stone tunnel, and we then emerged at the bottom of the final rock slab that peaked to the mountain top. Even from down here, we could still see the two figures of people, one in neon green and the other in orange. We started moving cautiously towards them. Please be sleeping, please be sleeping, please. But of course they weren't. This is the first proof that we had something that was truly wrong. And as we inched closer, we discovered the sound was emanating from a swirl clouds of maggots above, and we realised that these might be a pair of corpses. Michelle screamed and covered her eyes, and then she turned to me. She bent over with her hands on her knees. She said, Todd, what did you say earlier? The one barreling down the hillside? I don't know, hooray or hooray or something like that. Hooray? Yeah, I think so, Todd. Hooray is Spanish for run. Another chill. I stood up and blinked, and I think another glance at the maggots made it hit me. Those aren't maggots. Michelle, we gotta go now. What? Come on, we have to go. As if on cue, A cloud of mosquitoes lifted up from the corpses and began drifting aggressively in our direction. Michelle shrieked again and we took off down the mountain the way that we had come. We leapt over small boulders and slid down bigger ones, risking twisted ankles and broken bones. We then managed to hit the pay dirt of the flat ground and launch ourselves under the tunnel. Behind us, we could hear the howl of insects come in. It was only amplified by the surrounding rocks. Come on! I reached down and yanked up Michelle up out of the tunnel and we hoofed it back over towards the slab and the start of the scramble. I stole a glance over my shoulder as we fled and confirmed the situation. Quick, we gotta go quicker. I pumped my arms and legs as quick as I possibly could, Michelle doing the same. As soon as we burst back into the tree line, we started half running, half leaping down the dirt and gravel paveway. We flew over the rocks and roots, dove under branches, tore through smaller formations, and there were mosquitoes lying in wait for us. Shit. And thrashed through the thickle and the shrubs that covered the paveway below. The sound of the rushing water gave me the idea that maybe we could jump into it. Quick, into the water, come on! But we never made it in. Instead, we stumbled to a knee-rattling hole at the edge of the riverside. Michelle wrenched this time. I just stood there in disbelief. The man and the daughter had flown past us earlier, were lying face up in the water, freshly killed, yet already blue and grey depleted, with skin just looking like it was hanging off the bone and like it had been gone forever. They didn't really have any wounds that would make sense. I mean shit, there was no way they could die that quick. I heaved again. Michelle quickly pulled me to my feet. Todd, she screamed out, and I quickly turned around and saw that there was a horde of mosquitoes from the cliffs bearing down on us. When I turned back to the river, I saw another group of them, several hundred this time, likely the ones who'd killed the father and daughter. They'd flown in search of another meal, flying back upstream. A 2-for-1 deal suddenly appeared for them. Michelle grabbed me by the feet and quickly grabbed my wrist, and we splashed through the creek, and again, the far bank continued running. We were soaking through it and it seemed to be getting further from us. We were breathing sharply and rapidly, just ignoring how tired we were. All that mattered was getting back to our tent, grabbing the car keys and getting the hell off this mountain. Come on, Todd. You're so out of shape, just come on, it's only another half a mile. At least we could see the campsite clearing up ahead of us, and the two of us, long since having shed the weight of our bags and trail behind us, we dove down the last bit of the path and into the first row of tents. It was empty here. I noticed empty and quiet. I could plainly see several of the other tents had been opened up and rammed through. We literally couldn't see anyone though. I mean, we'd always seen at least 6 or 7 other people, but right now, none. I had no intention of finding out why. I held the flap of the tent open. Come on, help me out. What the hell are you doing? Those things are right behind us. You want to run all the way home? I left the keys in here so we wouldn't drop them. God, Todd! I didn't have to turn around to know that we'd have to run out of there. The unmistakable buzzing of the mosquitoes was coming from just right behind us. Michelle flew into the tent and I dove in with her. We zipped it up as fast as we could. Only a handful of them made it in. I found the keys and the two of us wiped our skin and quickly thrashed through the tent, smacking our exposed skin whenever a mosquito had landed on us, stomping them out. We used whatever we could find, books, pans, granola bar boxes. We just had to kill all of them that we possibly could. All you could hear was whip whip as we were taking them out. Damn it. I smacked my neck and splattered a particularly large one. It felt like it had hit me with a knife. The pain might have been of an injection. Why the hell did it hurt that bad? Michelle didn't answer. She just brought her boot down on 3 mosquitoes to splat them and then turned to me. What now? I shook my head. Those things are everywhere. I don't know where the hell they're coming from. What about the lamp? I looked at it. It was in really bad condition at this point. I knelt down. Click. Turned it right on. Worth a shot. I'm not dying here. I then looked up just in time to catch a wooden green windbreaker she had tossed in my direction. It's 90 degrees out there. We'll sweat to death in these. No, it's not for the warmth, you idiot. She zipped hers up to the chin and threw the hood over. It's for cover. The less skin we expose, the better. She then showed me her forearm. It was so red and infected that it almost looked like it was diseased. I shrugged a bit and then felt my neck. I could tell. Even in the absence of a mirror, it looked just as bad, probably worse. Those aren't normal mosquitoes, are they? She shook her head. Although the question was rhetorical, she then rolled up her sleeve and wrist and quickly pulled the hoodie as tight as she could. "You ready?" "Nope." "Alright, let's go." I then covered up as much as I possibly could and brought the lantern out. She then grabbed the zipper of the tent and looked at me. I nodded and she dragged it down. The mosquitoes flew in immediately but recoiled at the sight of the lamp. Michelle and I tore down the 3-mile path towards a parking lot. We kept our heads down as low as possible. We had to make sure that even though we were doing this, we did not lose sight of the path we were following. As we were going through the campsite, I nearly twisted my ankle on all of the crap that we'd thrown out. I then saw a bloodless blue hand too. It was that of an elderly man. It was hard to tell how long it had been there, but it was flopped out dead outside our tent. I swallowed vomit and kept on moving. Behind us I could hear more mosquitoes. Blink. I looked down. Blink, blink, blink. Shit. They were suicidally ramming themselves into the lamp. The glass was about to shut off. I waved it around a bit as we ran, but they were insistent and they were determined, and if we didn't make it back to the SUV soon, they'd destroy the lamp, and then Michelle and I would end up like everybody else. So on and on we ran, huffing and puffing and wheezing, her blissfully unaware of me hoping and praying that the integrity of the glass could withstand the onslaught that was happening. Under the branches and over the rocks and through the fallen logs, through mud and muck and underbush and everything you can imagine. All the while the mosquitoes bore down on us. We were constantly whipping and smacking as they were getting too close to us. At one point, I grabbed a fist-sized rock and threw it past a chunk of them. I knew this would take out a couple, but they didn't even blink or seem to notice. They just moved around it. "Todd," Michelle was gasping. "Look." I did. To the side of the road, there was a smouldering wreck of a sedan that we had seen wrapped around a tree. There were 3 of its doors that had been held open, and the interior of it was buzzing with mosquitoes. On the ground we could see a fresh corpse too, turned blue and grey. Then another figure, a woman in her mid-30s. She slipped out of the driver's seat and crawled around on all 4 broken limbs. She was hacking and wheezing and grabbing her throat with her good arm. "Oh god, Michelle, they're choking her. We have to go back." "Are you crazy? We go back and we're all dead." I noticed a slur in her words, but then I noticed a muffled scream and shot another glance over my shoulder, just in time to see a detachment of mosquitoes break off the girl and start pursuing us. As we were running away, we could hear them getting closer and closer to us. The low hum turned into a roar. It was overwhelming now. I felt like my lungs were about to burst open, like every muscle in my body was about to fall off me. My breath was short, it was rapid and sharp. It hurt my throat and chest now, and we're still a good mile away from the parking lot, which for all we knew, might have been covered by a million mosquitoes, or maybe they'd blocked us in, I don't know. We were just panicked fleeing hikers now. But we'd have to cross that bridge, or, even if we reached the thing, I looked over at Michelle. She was in even worse shape than I was, sweating, grey, gasping for air rapidly in short breaths. Her gait became awkward, and she couldn't overcome small obstacles like roots and stones. It became apparent now that whatever venom these mosquitoes carried in their stingers was actually making us exhausted. She was really slowing down now and struggling to move in the slightest. I reached over to grab her arm, but she yanked it back, and then I used my body to keep hers upright as I staggered away for our safety. "Come on, just a bit more." All of my energy and strength in my arm was just bent on getting us to that SUV. It was half a mile now. I could feel the keys jiggling in my pocket. Quarter. I could almost smell the cabin. A fifth. I began throwing together a plan to get both of us secured in the front seat and have the damn thing locked within the Olympic seconds that you would never have seen before. A tenth. Come on, move. All of a sudden though, there it is, the parking lot. I could see the sunlight glint off the roof of the sedan. I got a burst of renewed energy and flew down the last patch of gravel and dirt. Carrying an increasingly immobile Michelle behind me, I grabbed the keys and disengaged the locks. I then turned and threw Michelle into the passenger seat before running around the hood, and I almost leaped headfirst into the driver's seat. Getting a bit pelted the whole way, slamming the door behind us as a wall of mosquitoes slammed up against a window, and with an enormous splat. They kept up their assault though, hitting the windows, and it sounded like a rainstorm. Now I took them out after killing the handful of mosquitoes that had slipped in the gap and just gotten into where we were. I gathered some composure. I looked at Michelle and found her almost catatonic, struggling to breathe and move. Her eyes were wide and her hand was struggling to make a fist. Michelle. I leaned over and felt her pulse, rapid and hard. She was alive, but there was foam at the corners of her mouth as if she is infected. She might not be here for long. I threw the key into the ignition and slammed onto the gas. Come on, damn it, move. I did my best to ignore the slurs in my own speech and focus on getting us out of there. The tires whirled and screeched as I tried to get out of there as quickly as possible. They did their very best to keep up with us, I'll give them that, but by the time they rounded the corner that led up to the main road, the cloud was just slowly drifting away into the distance. Shit. I slammed on the brakes so hard now that we almost flipped over. There was a massacre of motorcycles and cars and minivans and bicycles lying all over the place and off to the sides, blinking their hazards through the fog. Doors were thrown open, luggage everywhere, there were bodies too. Dozens of them, men, women, children, all slipped out of their seats and drained of blood and fluids and set into their final positions. Slowly and cautiously, I released my foot from the brake and the SUV rolled at a snail's pace. It carried me straight down the road between the wreckage, and to the sides I could just see corpses everywhere. Some were still moving, some looked like they were absolutely mummified. But all had one thing in common, an enormous mid-torso wound that had pierced through the spine. This meant that each and every one of them was also paralysed. I didn't have to be an expert to put two and two together. Not a normal mosquito or even 1,000 of them could have done that. Whatever it was here was much worse. I scanned the horizon and applied a little more pressure to the gas and picked up the speed gradually. Instead of attracting whatever it was to my location with a roar of the engine, 5 miles an hour, 10, 15, 20. I was trying so desperately for them not to find me. 25, splurge. I turned my head to the left and I saw a half-dead body flop up and down as a sphere-sized stinger was injected and suddenly removed from its abdomen. There was a cloud of mosquitoes bursting out of the fog and descending on it. I gazed upwards and I caught a breath. Of all the things I'd seen that day, from coated mummified corpses on the side of the mountain to the man lying face up, to the crippled woman choking to death and hearing her, I felt nothing. I mean nothing. But nothing could compare to this hideously sized one. It was the size of a car. The stinger was absolutely huge. It was like a helicopter over the minivan. I then tried my very best not to scream. In a panic, I released my foot from the brake and the SUV rolled forward again. I went along with it and decided to make a hasty retreat to the main road. Unfortunately, the mosquito realised and started going in our direction. Shit! I slammed the gas for the second time. The SUV fell into gear and rocketed off while the mosquito was closing in. Come on, move, move. But it was far too quick, and once it reached the SUV, it planted 6 of its massive hairy legs onto the vehicle and beat the air with its wings. I could feel the momentum of the car shift and the tyres spun. I put my foot on the gas and the pedal was on the floor. There was no use. The SUV started to roll backwards. Then at the worst possible moment, a fresh horde of mosquitoes swept out and started to consume the front end of the car. I threw the windshield wipers on a desperate countermeasure, but they would only outweigh it. There were more mosquitoes piling on and pushing the advance. More and more. Sunlight was actually getting blocked out now. All I could hear was them, thousands of them. The glass was bending, and then it began to buckle. And then, ever so slightly, breaking. Michelle squeezed my hand with the loss of her strength. I tried to squeeze back, but it hurt. The venom was taking its course on me, and if Michelle's immobility was anything to go by, I wouldn't have much longer. I guess whatever paralytic agent this was going on was actually going through both of us. I squeezed my eyes shut and thought of home, of being a kid, all of a sudden crack. I then turned around just in time to see the trunk of the SUV getting ripped clean off by the mosquito. It wrapped its leg towards the front of the car. I swatted at it, but it was sharp and covered in stuff that really hurt. I whipped back again, but this time it grabbed my right arm and tried yanking me out. Michelle watched and trembled, but there was nothing she or I could do, as I was getting dragged across the seats. I was kicking and screaming. I bumped into boxes and bags. I smacked my head against the ceiling in the struggle. I was almost out, almost inside its mouth. I felt my hand brush against the cold glass and it was hurting. The lamp! I then realised. I grabbed it with my feet and turned around. I could see the mosquito's hideous teeth were looking at me. I didn't hesitate. There was no time for panic. I swung the lamp up and forward, and I brought the wrath of God upon its head. Smash! The glass, already chipped and worn from the events of the last few hours, exploded. Shards flew everywhere in my face and near my eyes. I could tell from the sudden release of pressure around my arm and waist, and from that bizarre shriek let out by the mosquito, that I'd caused far more damage to it than myself. It dropped me, and I smacked a rib on the edge of the car as I fell and slipped out onto the dirt. Meanwhile, the massive mother mosquito was panicking and started wrapping its claws around its face. I crawled back into the SUV and jumped into the driver's seat. Come on, don't foul me now, come on, move. The SUV jumped and shuddered and shook. But it got rolling. I wasted no time trying to get out of there. At 5 miles per hour, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, the images of chaos just flew past me. By now, the mosquitoes had regained some of their composure and given chase, but it was too late now. The fog had begun to lift and I could see the main road. 40 miles per hour, 50, 60. We were free. I looked at Michelle. She had a white-knuckled death grip on her face. White foam was now starting to pour out of her mouth, and her breaths were short and shallow, but her eyes were open and aware. She was still with me, but for not much longer. We pulled over by an officer from the state, and when he saw what had happened though, he escorted us immediately to the emergency room. Michelle and I were treated with anti-venom, with seconds to spare in her case, and for a host of bruises, scrapes, cuts and fractures. We were both alive. We managed to make it out of that nightmare in one piece somehow, or maybe less. Over the course of the next few weeks, I heard stories of other survivors, battered and shaken, and with stories not too dissimilar from ours. Authorities did investigate, but I'm really not sure what come of it. I didn't care. I and Michelle had all 4 limbs, and we had survived. And that was enough. I'll say this though, I think I'm done with hiking for a while. Maybe I'll start stamp collecting.